Welcome everyone to the Neutral Zone podcast where we're talking everything Kansas City Chiefs football. I am your co-host Austin Thompson, aka OZ, and this is episode 1 of season 2 NFL draft and offseason moves episode where we're going to kind of break down all of the Chiefs offseason moves, free agency, trades, and then we'll follow it up with the NFL draft, give our grades, and I am joined by none other than my co-host Nicholas Mignon. Nick, how are we feeling, brother? It has been a few months. We took a break and we're finally back on the Neutral Zone podcast.
Just had that old Super Bowl hangover, the weight of the world championship on our shoulders. And it's time for the three-peat. I can smell it. I feel it coming in the air tonight.
Yes, sir. Let's get it. Yes. So as Nick kind of gets into it, the Chiefs are back-to-back Super Bowl champs. Back in February, the Chiefs did defeat the Niners in overtime. Patrick Mahomes kind of throws a little out route to McCall Hardman for the game-winning touchdown. We didn't really touch on that much, so we'll kind of break down a little bit. We did watch the game together, and it was just one of those surreal experiences where, for me at least, the whole time the Chiefs were, they down 10 points, but you always felt like they were still in it. It was still that vintage kind of feel where the Chiefs are always in reach. And it was just another Super Bowl. It was another historic moment for Patrick Mahomes. He's kind of cemented his conversation in the GOAT conversation now where he is chasing Brady at this point. Everybody knows he's chasing Brady. It's not really, you could put Joe Montana up there with him, but it's really a two dog leg race between Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. But Chiefs are Super Bowl champs, and they're going for a three-peat. They've got back-to-back, and they're going for number 3. Nick, what was your feeling? I know, again, we watched it together, but do you remember that feeling that you had when, Chiefs win it in overtime at the last few seconds and the banners fall, the confetti flies, and Patrick Mahomes running around, jumping, and falls on the floor? What was that feeling when, the Chiefs won?
Well, as you know, we were there. We watched it together. The emotion for this one definitely just felt different. I don't know how to say it. Of course, the first one against the Niners was so special because, first one in 50 years and all that. But this one felt like the most earned. I don't know, the one that in some ways it felt like we may not win it. And like you said, I think just Patrick Mahomes, cemented his legacy. I think he was already a Hall of Famer before this season, just based on his impact to the history of the NFL already. And this only further cemented it. I think when you talk about the GOAT status, like you said, it's between Brady and Mahomes, and we can have this conversation and debate all day. I get it. I get the Brady GOAT conversation. I came to appreciate him a lot, during his last few years, and he even beat us, and it was just like, he defeated Father Time, But with that said, I think that you talk about Brady as being maybe he's the greatest right now as far as his legacy because it's over and you can say that. But Mahomes is the most skilled quarterback to ever play the game. No doubt about it. I think I saw a statistic. He's like the most clutch quarterback also to ever play statistically. Or at least, it's really close between him and like Brady. And obviously Mahomes played a lot less games. So, I mean, just the emotions, it just felt like, hard earned, well deserved. And might I add, I think just one of the anecdotes that needs to be said about this Super Bowl that may be lost in time is that this was statistically by far Mahomes' worst year, his worst supporting crew by far. And we still got it done. And that just shows the level of competition and resiliency of this team. And I'm just looking forward to, how we've stacked up over this off season, and ready for that three-peat. I think it's going to be tough. Obviously, nobody's ever done it, but if anybody can do it, it's the Mahomes, Andy Reid, Kelsey led Chiefs.
I think the mindset too is what's the other kind of amazing factor in this three-peat conversation, because I got the same feeling when that the Super Bowl is over. It was like I celebrate for half a second and it was like, all right, what's the offseason going to look like? You immediately jump to next season. And that's exactly what Mahomes did, post parade. He's already talking about the three-peat. Travis is ready for the three-peat. And it's like, you guys just won two Super Bowls in a row and you're not even wanting to celebrate this one. You're ready for the next one. And, I got the same feeling. I just remember like thinking, okay, who's free agents? Like, who are we losing? How are we rebuilding the team? We're at that point, and it's almost like we're in that Patriots dynasty mode where it's always just rebuild, retool, and compete. And that's what the Chiefs are going to do every single season. And it's boom or bust every time if the Chiefs don't win the Super Bowl. Pretty much, like that's how it's going to be. But besides injury and things like that, if they do occur. But it's if the Chiefs don't win the Super Bowl, it's a down year for them at this point. Like that is the standard that they set. And I'm just glad that a lot of people were thinking the same thing. Like, okay, we're ready to move on. We're ready for the off season. Who are we taking in the draft? Who are we keeping? Who are we letting go? And so, that's a good transition into getting into the off season. We'll just do quick, kind of a quick summary of the entire thing so we can actually get into the draft portion. But I do want to talk about, some of these points. Some of these points do deserve conversation. So this was kind of the order through the off season up until the draft. And it was Chris Jones got his new deal. All last season, he missed game one, sitting in the booth, if you remember, on that Thursday night game with his agents, and they end up working out some kind of new deal where he ends up getting his money, he hits his incentives, gets the Super Bowl, gets the sacks, and he's just all about the money. And for last season, he wants to get his money. And this offseason, you were like, man, is this going to carry on? Is this going to be another offseason like last year where you don't know what's going to happen with Chris Jones? It's going to fall into the season. And Veach makes the decision and gets the deal done, signs a huge deal where we're keeping him for 5 years. I think it's a front heavy 3-year deal. And we're getting the best D tackle in his prime. And yes, we'll deal with the maybe later years of 34 and 35 years old Chris Jones, but we're getting the best D tackle in the league and we're locking him up for the next few years to really make runs at a couple Super Bowls.
Yeah. And, well, I'd say he just, talk about another guy sort of cementing his legacy, Chris Jones. And in my eyes, my personal, as a fan watching him, at the beginning of the year, before all this happened, I was iffy about getting this done, because, naturally you think about how many D tackles have been able to play at that high level. And the only one that comes to mind was Aaron Donald for an extended period of time. And even Aaron Donald had a decline, last couple of years or so. And so it was like, man, I don't know. I love Chris Jones. Obviously a huge part, in the previous Super Bowls and the previous teams, but is it going to be worth it going forward? And I just ate my words with that, because he completely showed up when the team needed it. We talked, all last season about how important the defense was, and at many times, not to discredit the offense and what they were able to do. But I think everybody knows, especially until it came to the playoffs, that the defense was the MVP of the regular season, I would say. And, largely because of Chris Jones and his leadership and his impact. So that's just, it was shown. And then on the biggest stage, the biggest play of the biggest game of the season gets blown up because of Chris Jones putting pressure on Brock Purdy, completely disrupts that play. So worth it. You got to pay the guy. You have to. There's no question whether he deserves the money or not. And obviously, I think as we'll look at going forward, it cost us maybe some players and the way that things were arranged, but You can't deny it. You just unfortunately, and luckily, or however you want to swing it, that's just you have to pay him. You have to give that guy the recognition he deserves. He earned it 100%. So
Yeah, and speaking, of the top tier defense and maybe some of the effects of Chris Jones' deal, was Snead. Snead getting traded to the Titans was a direct effect of Chris Jones' deal. There just wasn't enough money to go around and still put, supplement pieces to build out the defense. One of the guys, Drew Tranquil, who, came back on a friendly deal. We were able to keep him. But the Snead trade was, to the Titans for a third round in 2025 and a swap for the seventh for this year. Was it the best deal? In my opinion, no. I felt like the Chiefs didn't get anything, compared to what, for instance, when Jalen Ramsey was traded to the Dolphins, they gave up, or maybe it was to the Rams. Sorry, not to the Dolphins. When Jalen Ramsey was traded from the Jaguars to the Rams, they gave up first round picks for Jalen Ramsey. Now, was Snead at Jalen Ramsey, superstar status? Maybe not, but he was the best. He's maybe one or two best corner in the league, and that should have been at least a second round pick. I think we could argue back and forth, and hindsight 2020, we'll see. Everything's in the past now, but that they could have got more. It felt like, but it also felt like they just wanted to get that kind of out of the way so that they could move on with the offseason. But Snead is a huge loss. That's something, the Chiefs have made good offseason moves and been able to replenish, but Snead is a huge loss for this team. We're losing our number one corner. We have good DBs, and we'll get into some of the DBs later too during the draft, but Snead's a huge loss. That's a big loss for a defense that was top 5 all year and carried the team through the entire season until the playoffs.
yeah, I agree with you 100%. And you know, my coping about it, the way that I'm trying to handle it in my mind is that, he, as locked down as he was, and I mean, it just pains me to say this because I was a huge Snead advocate all year. We both were, and um, but what you have to say, I guess, is just that he did give up some big holding calls at times because he's a physical cornerback, obviously. So that's going to happen, and when you're on the optimism side of it, you're like, okay, I'll take it because he's shutting down receivers. But penalties are penalties, and obviously, giving up those big plays makes a difference. So that's something that that he's going to take with him, and however that ends up turning out for him. But definitely, that was something about him. And in addition to that, he did have, again, shut down all the top receivers in the league this year, pretty much. However, he did have a couple times where, even in the Super Bowl, if you look back at the footage, he kind of got burnt, or just got lost on a route, and had the D line or someone else not made a play. That receiver that he left unguarded may have been able to do some damage to us. So on the other side, having McDuffie is another, because I think at the time it's hard to argue that we could have had, we had the top 3 quarterback duos in the league, and top 3 and maybe not 3. You know what I mean? Like, so we're okay, on the McDuffie side of things, and like I said, we picked up some pieces that hopefully will make it work, but it's a big loss, and we may struggle with that part of it, but hopefully these young guys can come in, and it seems like, fortunately, lately, and I don't know if it's Spags defense or what it is exactly, but our DBs have been developing fairly well in the last few years. If you think about even the guys that ended up walking away, have done fairly well in other on other teams as well, like Travarius Ward and Steven Nelson and other guys like that. I mean, have been starting quarterbacks on other teams. So, I think we can develop these young guys and hopefully not have it be such a big loss. But he deserved to get paid too, and um, Titans were able to do it for him. So what else can you say?
Yeah, and I think something else that went into that Snead trade is the play of Chamari Connor. I mean, I kind of I don't want to take credit for it, but I did kind of snipe it out a little bit and thought that he was going to be in the future a big time player. There was one play he made against the Bills last year, and it was just an incredible kind of like one of those instinct ball hawk plays
Mhm.
where Josh Allen is scrambling. He follows the receiver one way, sees Josh Allen taking off, comes across the entire field and picks off Josh Allen. And he was a rookie last year, so it's you kind of saw that Veach made certain draft picks because he knew that these things are coming, and I do want to talk about that later about these specific draft picks that they just made. But I think that's something Veach is very good at. Is he is so in the future, and he
Mhm.
knows what needs to be replaced. It's just it's incredible, and I think Chamari Connor I think is going to be. I think he's going to play slot. He's going to kind of be all over the place. I think he's going to play slot. I think he's going to play safety. He's going to be everywhere. So I think that was a big part of the Snead trade. But let's talk about the the biggest conversation last year. I swore we talked about it once an episode, and you guys can go back, look at every episode. You'll see something about this specific group on the team, the wide receiver room.
Mhm.
Genuinely, we talked about them every episode. There was always something to talk about, whether it was rookie Rasheed Rice, it was drops from MBS, drops from Tony. I mean, it was continuously. I was continuously making thumbnails with receivers in them because it was always a conversation. Like it was just always a conversation, and we continue to have conversations about this wide receiver room. That's something else Veach I love about what Veach does is he when he sees a problem, he immediately takes care of it. We saw a couple years ago when the Chiefs lost to the Bucks in the Super Bowl because of the tackles, the O line couldn't hold up. He immediately redoes the entire line. The
Yeah.
following year, the Chiefs defense is struggling. They cannot stop anybody. Redoes the entire defense. Let's go with Tyrann Mathieu, brings in Justin Reed. I mean, he redoes the entire defense, drafts two players in the first round, McDuffie and Karloftis, and just rebuilds the defense. And Veach sees the problem. He knows that there's going to be a problem with the wide receiver room, and he's got to take care of it. He goes, it's a solid receiver, Marquise Brown, who has shown that he is capable of making plays. And then later, we do draft a receiver. Again, we'll get into that later. But we do have the bigger elephant in the room, and as the young star, Rasheed Rice's off the field issues.
Mhm.
We know, and reports have been out. We know that he's admitted fault in some of these allegations and kind of like video evidence of him showing getting out of cars. But basically, to break it down, him and his friend were racing. He rented a Lambo. His friend was in the Corvette, and they both were racing, going about 120 miles an hour on the highway. They end up wrecking, hit a few cars, and turns into a big deal. Turns into a distraction for a team that is trying to three-peat. And I feel like over the past few weeks, the conversation has definitely died down where you're not hearing as much of that.
Mhm.
And that might be, due to draft hype, or maybe it's just kind of been swept under the rug. But it still is a big deal. Rasheed Rice was just under 1,000-yard receiver for the Chiefs. And in his rookie season, he was a big part of why the Chiefs were able to win the Super Bowl. I mean, you could say that as a rookie, stepping up when there was no one else for Mahomes to throw to, he stepped up huge and made plays for the Chiefs. So it's a conversation that we need to have about Rasheed Rice. What is our thoughts about him going forward? What is the timeline of probably a suspension? I'm assuming there will be suspension, just because I think the commissioner in NFL is going to want to make a statement, especially with the Henry Ruggs issue that happened a few years ago. So what are your thoughts with the Rasheed Rice off the field kind of issues, and talk about other wide receiver issues that we've had just through the off season and going into this season.
Yeah, I mean, so truthfully, I really feel like there's sort of two sides to this coin. One side being the moral, um, sort of the, you know, the legal part of it as well. I think most, 99% of people would agree and know, what he was doing was really messed up. And, things could have turned out tremendously worse for everyone involved. Um, Obviously, and then, from a legal standpoint, it was breaking the law and all this other stuff. So, um, I think that's part of that conversation. I think it not necessarily. I don't know that it's necessary for us to break down that part of it.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, no, I
you
agree.
know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I don't think. Yeah,
But and then there's the other flip side of it, which from the fan perspective, right? And then just being a fan of the football player Rasheed Rice. Obviously, the man or what the man Rasheed Rice, he made a big mistake, right? But from a football player perspective, from our fan of just what he does on the football field and all that, which I don't know that you could say it can be separated. I'm not necessarily advocating for that either. But just to talk about that side of things, he was obviously, I think that you and I, we were very much sort of watching him and calling on him, to sort of step up and hoping that he would, as we were having these wide receiver woes early in the season, and you know, uh, obviously not that Brett Veach or sorry, Andy Reid or anybody else was listening to us. They were, by the way, but um, they got him involved, and that completely flipped the script on what we could do on offense because finally Mahomes had a reliable target to throw to, and I think without him on the roster, without that draft pick, without having him, we don't win this. We don't. I don't know if we make it to the Super Bowl. Just to be frank with you, because just I think it just completely changed the motivation, the morale on the team. I think other people started playing a little bit better when they saw him playing better. It's like, look, the young rook, he's stepping up. He can make plays. We got to make plays too. And I think it completely changed the dynamics on the offensive side of things. And I feel for him, because obviously he made a mistake. I don't know what was going through his mind at the time. Clearly, you know, not thinking enough, right? And to that regard, not looking at what future he might be able to have. And what I think that looked like is I think he was looking at wide receiver one for the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, for the dynasty Chiefs. Going forward, he was going to be our wide receiver one. He has that, the build as far as he's a fast guy, a deep threat guy, physical. He's got all the tangibles to be, a league leader in receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, all that stuff. Um, now, even if we get him back, and I think the rumor mill is saying, he might be suspended. Let's just call it 6 games. It might be 8, it might be 4. We'll just
yeah,
average it out, call it 6. But that's a derail of your career. That's a derail of the momentum. You're hurting the team. You're hurting yourself. All things that people around him have obviously probably already told him, but just from a fan perspective, it sucks because it looked like we were finally getting our future sort of, I think we would have had our wide receiver solidified. Obviously, we have our tight end and quarterback solidified, and you could even say, having Pacheco, like we have the weapons, the starting weapons would have been good to go, and every rest would have been supplemental pieces. Um, who's to say, what's going to happen going forward as far as how that impacted who we picked up in the draft, and then this next season, how those players perform. Do they eventually? Is it going to turn into a situation where we ended up not needing Rashee Rice down the line anymore, and he only dug himself a hole. We picked up, obviously, and we'll talk about it more, but we picked up a wide receiver, on paper, a really good one, on video too, whatever, but, a good wide receiver. Would we have picked that specific one up, had Rashee not messed up? I don't know. And how does that affect our future? These are all what ifs that, we can't necessarily, dive too much into because it's all hypothetical, but, it completely definitely affected the team, no matter which way you swing it. It affected the team. I think obviously the mindset and the goals don't change, but the way that you're going to get there, I think was probably affected, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I hope I'm most happy that no one else was hurt, right, in that whole situation. I hope also that he learns from his mistakes, obviously. And as far as the legal stuff, we let the law take care of that. And when he comes back to play football, I hope he's just ready to go.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that I think I care about the most is you got to be ready to when you come back. You made your mistake. I do think it could, and I don't want to twist my words too much here, but basically, if he did get an 8-game suspension, it might be nice getting a fresh set of legs 8 games in at receiver. Turning something that, thank God that nothing happened to somebody where they were injured, but turning something bad to good, you're giving maybe rookie receivers more reps beginning a season, getting them in a rhythm. You're getting some fresh legs back of your number one receiver from last year. So there are some positives of the outcome of this situation as far as football standpoint. I think we both kind of see that in that way.
Yeah.
But so speaking of, Veach, and we talked about Andy Reid, and I think it's Mark Donovan, by the way. They both got a new deal where they're bringing basically the 3-headed monster that's kind of built this team. I think Veach came on. We talked about it maybe in person sometime. I think it was like 2018 or it was like a year after Mahomes was drafted or, 2 years after or something.
I think I was looking into it a little bit more. And basically we'd been talking also about John Dorsey, when he was our GM. Yeah. And obviously he drafted Mahomes, but I think Veach was on the staff. He was in the building, so. But yes, sorry.
No, it's good. So yeah, we get a new deal for the 3-headed monster, the team that's or the front office that has been building this dynasty, just all together. We get Andy Reid for a longer time. I haven't seen the details exactly. I think Andy Reid did become the highest paying head coach, and of course Veach is known for his offseason moves, his draft moves. He's kind of responsible for getting the guys in the building. So huge W for just the Chiefs in general, getting those guys back. Even a lot of people know Andy Reid, but even NFL fans in general, not knowing some of these guys like the GM or anybody in the front office, really. If you're not a fan of the team, you're not going to know. But it's a huge move for the behind the scenes guys, the guys that are going to continue to run this team. And it seems the Chiefs are going all in. It seems like the Hunt family is going all in. And you see that also with another new deal with Travis Kelce. I mean, Travis Kelce, it was rumored at first where he was getting 2 years extended, but it was actually kind of just a new deal for him. His current 2 years, he's just getting a pay bump. So he's becoming the highest paid tight end in the NFL currently, and well-deserved. He's been underpaid, I think, his whole career pretty much. I don't even think he was like top 6 in paid tight ends until now. So good for him being able to get, a new deal. But like I said, it was kind of disappointing because you thought he was going to get another 2 years, and it's like, wow, Travis Kelce is going to play for 4 more years. But right now it's stuck at 2, and Mahomes, comes out and tweets, I'm not going to let him go anywhere for a while. So it's good to see that the Chiefs are keeping that core where they are going all in the time that they have, and the front office is willing to spend the money. The owner of the Chiefs, the Hunt family, is willing to spend money, except on a new stadium. But we can get into that later.
That's a whole conversation.
Yeah, that one we might have to save for a podcast. But, with some new rumors about them possibly coming to the Kansas side, I kind of actually want to talk about that maybe on maybe the next episode. Maybe we'll have a whole discussion about the new
Stay
stadium and
tuned.
things like that. Yeah, stay tuned.
Tune
Come
in
back.
to the next one.
Yeah, come back for episode 2 of season 2. But so after all that, that's kind of the off-season moves up until the draft. And so I think, Nick, if you're ready, we can kind of dive into the draft and maybe talk about some of these guys that the Chiefs brought in. Um, so again, we talked about the wide receiver room and the Chiefs. Surprisingly, to be honest, I was surprised. I was surprised by who they picked. I was surprised how they picked them, and um, I was surprised at their second round pick as well, and I'll tell you why. But Chiefs picked. They were originally at spot 32, last pick in the draft, and they ended up trading with the Buffalo Bills, which is another conversation in itself.
Yeah.
And they traded with the Buffalo Bills. They're playoff rivals. They've been going back and forth since 2019, 2020, constantly. I think the Bills have beaten the Chiefs multiple times in the regular season, and then the Chiefs are beating them in the playoffs. And it's like, Bills, how could you help the one team that we're trying to pass, and you give them the fastest guy in the NFL history 40-yard dash, Xavier Worthy? You allowed the Chiefs to come up, and the Chiefs didn't trade much for it. They did give up pick 95, I believe, and they moved back to like 131. So they lost 40 spots, and I think it was like a back end 7th round pick that they kind of swapped basically for for the 7th round pick from the Bills. So, but the Chiefs picked at pick 28, moved up and picked Xavier Worthy, the 5'11", 165-pound receiver out of Texas. And this was the first pick that the Chiefs have made on a wide receiver in the first round since McCole Hardman. And McCole Hardman was a very solid and productive player for the Chiefs. There was some other receivers they could have got, which was like DK Metcalf. That's kind of a big one. That's always a conversation. So hopefully there isn't, we want to see Worthy turn into something, be that, solidified first round pick, and not, because this wide receiver class was deep. It was a deep draft class, and you don't want to. There was many guys that went after him that you thought were going to go first round. Like the Bills took Keon Coleman, and those guys were projected first round. So, but the Chiefs end up getting Xavier Worthy, and there is some kind of caution and I don't know what you would call it necessarily, like ups and downs with picking Xavier Worthy, and that's one of them is size. Again, I talked about that he owns the record for the 40-yard dash, 4.21 seconds, but he's 165 pounds, and it's like John Ross 2.0 is kind of what the conversation is about. You break the NFL Combine record, but then you just don't produce to anything. So, Nick, what are your thoughts on the Chiefs taking Xavier Worthy? And do you have any kind of the concerns that I bring up that, he might be John Ross 2.0? Yeah, he's fast, but he also is one hit stick away from breaking a leg. There's just kind of like, I don't know how I feel. I've always wanted Mahomes to have the 6'4" jump ball back of the end zone pylon receiver, and I thought that they were going to go that way. But instead, they give him, speed, which Andy Reid loves speed. He always has. But so what are your thoughts on Xavier Worthy and the Chiefs taking him first round, 28th pick overall?
So, well, firstly, I think, as far as the Bills trade to, get up to get him, I think it's a little bit of an overreaction from most people. I think obviously the Bills, I think they wanted Keon Coleman and they knew that they were going to get him no matter what. And, they got maybe a better draft choice later in the draft. And the guy that they wanted anyway. I think that Xavier Worthy would have been there for us, possibly. I could see the Ravens, would have
That
maybe
was the one I
picked
was
him.
worried about.
Yeah, and I think that that's what they were worried about, because if you think about it, they wanted probably a replacement for originally drafting Hollywood Brown, who is now on our team, after moving to Arizona, and then, obviously ended up here. So I think that's probably, there was some, they caught wind. I was trying to think of, there's another phrase anyway. They through the grapevine, they probably heard that that the the Ravens were looking at getting Xavier Worthy, which probably would have been a good pick for him. Um, like you said, this draft class was deep, and there was a lot of guys. I mean, Keon Coleman specifically, he had been on my radar for a while. As far as the Chiefs picking him up, and I liked Brian Thomas. I kind of liked Ad Mitchell more from Texas than Xavier Worthy because of what you mentioned. Like just having that sort of big body fit, more physical receiver. Rather than another speedster, because it feels like we've cycled through a couple speedsters, and we hit obviously the lottery on Tyreek Hill, but truthfully, I think even though we've proven that we can get it done without him, I think Tyreek Hill is nearly one of one, right? Like I think there's been other fast guys in the league and before, but there's none that are really like Tyreek Hill. Um, we'll see if that's what they were going for with Xavier Worthy. I'm not sure. When I had watched videos on him before the draft, right around the time he had been on my radar, I think before the combine, and then after the combine, obviously he blew everything up. But right around that time, a couple months ago, when I had watched his highlights and things like that, I had thought at the time, I was more worried that he was kind of like what I would call like a beeline, straight line speedster, right? Like you said, like John Ross or even McCole Hardman, who these guys are. I mean, they're incredibly fast, but they have that sort of track speed, sprinter down a straight lane kind of speed, is what I thought anyway. Now, I, trying to sort of get excited about the pick because I wasn't necessarily like, I was iffy about it when we picked it. Um, Watching some more highlights, I do notice that he runs fantastic routes. Like he's a good to great route runner. I mean, considering like coming out of college, he's a good to great route runner. He has lateral speed, not just straight line speed, right? He's got good hands. I think obviously one of the main things that people talk about is his frame. But I was largely worried about that, and it was something that I was counting out about Devontae Smith when he was coming out of college and coming out of Alabama, and obviously he had great success at Alabama. But one, it was like, well, he's playing at one of the best programs in college football, and let's see if it translates to the NFL where you're getting hit by the best of the best, right? And in large part, Devontae Smith, he doesn't have. I mean, he's a thin guy, right? And he hasn't had like super detrimental injuries. I think he's been tweaked, here and there, but for the most part, he gets hit like everybody else, and he gets back up and keeps going. So like to discredit this guy for his size, sometimes you also got to wonder is they probably heard that all their football career, right? I mean, you're too skinny, you're too skinny. It's like, and he's made it to this point. He's always been skinny, right? So obviously, the level of competition jumps up significantly going into the NFL, but having that speed, that's something that, like, it's what they say, you can't train that, right? Um, and he's not just fast; he's got the other skill sets that you need to be an efficient wide receiver in the NFL too. Now, could he have some trouble, in press coverage and in that bump and run kind of style? If he gets a physical corner, he might. Um, And, also there's always the risk of when you're playing that press, bump and run kind of coverage from a DB that if you miss, you get burnt, right? So it's a toss up when, you're playing that game also with someone with his speed. And make no mistake, off the line, he's like dangerous. I mean, he's got wheels, obviously. So I think what I think is that he went to the best possible team to maximize his skills. And if you think about NFL players and good NFL players, and good college players that turned out not to be good NFL players, I think that that's more important than a lot of people tend to realize is the situation that you're going in, the team that you're getting drafted by. It's not only just your own personal skill level. Um, so I think he's going to the best possible scenario in numerous ways. Obviously, he's got the best quarterback in the league. We've beefed up our receiver room a little bit we've got some good supporting cast. And something that I think is really important too to recognize is there was another, you know, top of the league speed receiver under Andy Reid at one point, and I'm not talking about Tyreek Hill. I'm talking about Deshaun Jackson when he was in Philadelphia.
I was
And
about to bring up how big he is. He's 5'11", 170.
that's how Deshaun Jackson was.
Deshaun, no, excuse me. He's 5'10", 170. And Xavier Worthy is 5'11", 165.
So very
And
comparable.
I also looked up Devontae Smith. He's 6', 170.
Yeah. I mean, he's very comparable to those guys. And you're going to tell me that Devontae Smith and Deshaun Jackson, which weirdly both by the Eagles, random, but you know, um,
That is, yeah.
but yeah, but obviously those guys have, Devontae Smith hasn't had as many years, but Deshaun Jackson had a great career. Particularly was very good with the Eagles, and Andy Reid knew how to maximize his talent. And he didn't have Mahomes at the time, right? So, again, I think best possible scenario with him. I think my ultimate, if I had to do one sentence to sum up this pick, it's going to be boom or bust. So it's going to be an amazing, great pickup that's totally fits with our offense, or it maybe was more hopeful than effective. But I'm optimistic about it.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with the boomer bust because that pressure of that first round pick, the Chiefs giving up draft capital to come get you. Kind of like the McDuffie thing, Chiefs gave up draft capital to get McDuffie and he turns out to be an all pro. And that's the type of moves you want to make is, you're trading up to get a guy that's going to be an all pro is obviously way over the expectation, but you want to get a solid starter, a guy, especially at receiver, that's going to give you 700 to 1,000 yards. I mean, a first round pick, that's what you're looking for. And you're making those trades to get guys like that. I love the comparison to Deshaun Jackson. I think that's why the Chiefs made that pick is Andy Reid. I think he knows exactly what to do with him. You bring up a great point that it's the perfect situation for him. By far, I think nowhere else he could have gone. And he even mentioned it. He was like, I knew I was going to be a Chief. Like he talked about how he didn't want to go anywhere else. I think the Chiefs have seen him way before the 40-yard dash. And I think they wanted it. I think they thought they could have got him in the second round, but ever since the combine and he broke the record, he jumped up to that first round status. They knew what they were going to do. They knew they just had to figure out who to trade with and how to make it work. So I think it was a good pick. It's again, we talked about the kind of the receivers we wanted, but also I just gave 10 minutes ago, I gave Brett Veach, the praise of building teams, and I'm glad he's here. So what do I know? You know what I mean? I got to trust, the saying, trust in Veach. You have to trust him. He knows what he's doing, and he's going to get guys in the locker room that are, good for the team and make plays and are explosive. And that's what Andy Reid loves. So I think overall, I think that she's made a good choice in taking Xavier Worthy. And I hope, again, he turns out to be, wide receiver number 1, wide receiver number 2. I mean, that's what you would expect out of and imagine that duo, Worthy and Rice, if they can, give it a year after this year. I mean, you have 2 future wide receivers for the Chiefs going forward. It's just the young talent that the Chiefs have is just insane. And it's just a crazy, just feeling having all these young guys with some experience in Travis Kelsey, Chris Jones, leadership. That's how the Chiefs are going to continue to build their team, is get these young guys in small contracts, and not overspend. And they're going to make aggressive moves in the draft to get talent. They have to have talent around Mahomes because he can't do it all. And he's been Superman twice, but it's going to be hard to ask him to do it 3 times in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and to your point, what you said, I love, a guy that is passionate about like being part of the team, right? And like, so much so that he obviously got the Chiefs logo tattooed on him already.
I saw that.
I
Yeah,
mean, that's diehard commitment right there. And I love to see that. I mean, he's already bought into like you said before the fact. I mean, he's like, I want to be the Kansas City Chiefs. If I wanted to play with anybody, it'd be Patrick Mahomes. He made that. Obviously they made that happen. Um, he's got the logo tatted on him, and he's bought in. He's not, and let's be like really honest. Like, I think a lot of guys, especially coming out of college, and especially in today's game with like the NIL stuff, I think like it's more prevalent, like this style, and I'm not necessarily being judgmental about it, but a lot of these guys, they're in it for the flashiness and the like the status of it. And you and I are Kansas City people. We're in Kansas City. Like, we're a Midwest, we are the Midwest, right? There's not necessarily like all the extra pizzazz and all that other stuff. So you're coming to the Chiefs, you're here to play football and win championships. Like, that's what's on our mind. And nothing, there's no distractions. It's not New York or LA or Miami, Chicago. This is what we're about. So for him to be bought into that already, I love that.
yeah, for sure. So let's move on to the second round. This is my favorite pick by far in the draft for the Chiefs. The Chiefs again are supposed to pick at 64, and they make another trade up with the team they just defeated in the Super Bowl, the San Francisco 49ers. They trade up from 64 to 63, and they jump up to get Kingsley Suamatea, the left tackle from BYU. He's a big body, 6'4", 326. And he's got some, bloodline that's in the NFL, with his cousin being Penei Sewell. And he is just a beast when it comes to, watching highlights of him. And he takes grown men and puts them in the ground. He moves them so easy. And I think the Chiefs were aggressive, and but they knew when to lay back, is what's crazy, because you looked at mock drafts, you could see the Chiefs taking Kingsley Suamatea at 32. I mean, he should have been a first round pick, and he fell to them at 63. I thought they were taking him at 32. Like, that's why I was surprised when the Chiefs went wide receiver. I was like, wow, we just passed up on our left tackle, and he falls to 63. I couldn't believe it. Like, the Chiefs got exactly who they needed to in the first 2 picks. The 2 positions that were struggling, left tackle, receiver, they got both. And I was just going to be happy with one. So the Chiefs potentially get their starting left tackle second round for the next 10 years. And, he's going to have a battle with Wanya Morris, who, the Chiefs had last year, stepped in, played 4 games during the season while Donovan Smith was hurt. And he did good, for the most part. He struggled, I think, a lot in the pass, but was very good in the run. Mm-hmm. And but he did his part, and as a rookie, he came in and stepped in for a vet who was injured, and played his part. But I think it's going to be a real battle in training camp. I think Kingsley has a real shot at getting that starting position, and I want the Chiefs to really give him that chance. Just like Rashee Rice last year, where we were continuously like, get him in the game. You have some time to give up some, let the rookie learn and give up some mistakes and things like that. We want these rookies in and playing as much as possible, especially at these positions, receiver or left tackle, who we want him to be here for the next 10 years. We want him to protect Mahomes' blind side and be the guy that says, nobody's going to touch you, Mahomes. And it's true. It's not, just something that doesn't happen. That's what we've been looking for, and I hope it's Kingsley. He seems like he's going to be that type of player, and I just hope he comes in and kills Wanya Morris for that starting position, and I hope he gets it. No discredit to Wanya Morris, and if Wanya Morris wins it, and it's because he is, went up to a whole nother level, then I'm okay with it because now you have you have two battling left tackles, and you're happy with who you have. But you have to have somebody in to protect Mahomes' blind side. You have to. That's one of the most important positions. It's the highest paid lineman position. And if you can get a guy in here on a rookie deal for the next 4 years to protect Mahomes at the same level as, Tyrone Smith did for the Dallas Cowboys for the last 10 years, you're getting a steal when it comes to, how much you're paying and, age. And you took him in the second round. I think the Chiefs did an incredible with this pick, and it made so much sense for them to draft, trade up just in case anybody else is trying to trade up to get him. They knew who they wanted all along. Again, the first two picks the Chiefs made, I think, were very good. They knew who they wanted, and I hope it turns out to be one of the best picks Brett Veach has ever made.
Yeah, I mean, to your point about the first two picks, and but zeroing in on Kingsley, these are two guys that weren't just the best available on the draft board for the Chiefs. These are guys that the Chiefs wanted. We wanted these guys, like specifically these guys. And sorry to jump back just a little bit to Xavier Worthy. Like Mahomes worked out with him. There's been dialogue back and forth, like before we picked him. We wanted him, and obviously we moved up so much so to get him. Not knowing if Kingsley was going to be there in the second round, but that's, like you said, that's a guy we possibly would have drafted in the first round. And so, for the top two picks to be guys that we wanted on our team, that we would have drafted as the first choice, as a choice rather than just who's available. That's just awesome for us. And I think it's hopefully that the amount of like confidence they had in these two guys comes out and shows that they can make an immediate impact on the team, which we definitely need from the both of them. But yeah, the only things that I was going to say about Kingsley is I'm not necessarily as excited as you were per se. I am excited, and only reason being I didn't know a lot about him, but after watching his highlights, I mean he's just nasty, and that's what you want from a left tackle. Just guy, like you said, throwing grown men around like it's nothing. And the only I think the only fault is that he might be like a little bit on the raw side, of as far as he's got all the skills and talent and size. He just needs to fine tune some of the other stuff. But again, another situation where I think he's going to the perfect team to help him develop these things. And just, I don't know, just needing to protect Mahomes, never wanting to go back to that Tampa Bay Super Bowl and be in that situation again where Mahomes is running for his life, going for 500 on the yards, 500 yards on the ground in the backfield. But yeah, even if we could just get, if we could get, his cousin's level of performance out of them, if we could get a Penei Sewell on our team, talk about what a steal. And let me ask you this, because I don't know, if they can, if they have experience, but if Wanya, is playing at a great level and Kingsley is as well, what are your thoughts about Wanya? I guess, or Kingsley, but probably Wanya, beating out Jawan Taylor at the right tackle position. are those guys that can switch? Like, I mean, I know some tackles can switch. I'm just saying, do you know if Wanya can? Um,
Yeah, he can. He played a little bit of right tackle in college.
cool.
What I was hearing and listening to, um, that the Chiefs might go with is they're going to have Wanye and Kingsley at left tackle, and then Jawan and Lucas Niang at right. But Niang is going to be kind of the practice squad moving back and forth guy
Okay.
because of if they need to bring another defensive player up because of injury or something like that, like he's the chopping block guy. Wanya Morris is really the swing guy. So if Niang gets hurt, he's coming in. And I think what they're hoping for is that Kingsley wins the job so that he can just be that guy that plays both sides, either position he's ready to play.
Yeah.
He has experience, like I said, through those 4 games. But yes, he did play right tackle and left tackle both in college, so he does have experience. I think Kingsley was strictly left tackle throughout
Yeah.
his career at BYU. So I think it's their dream scenario. I think their dreams, and I think this will happen too. I actually wouldn't be surprised unless Kingsley is just like some monster that comes out and he's like, just the next freaking Joe Thomas type. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs went and signed Donovan Smith and brought him back for another Super Bowl run, and you have multiple guys backing up, whether it's, Wanya moves back over to, back up Jawan Taylor on the right side, or Niang stays on the right side, and you still have that battle between Wanya and Kingsley. It wouldn't hurt my feelings if Kingsley sat for a season also. Um, and the reason why, and I was going to bring this up when you brought back up Xavier Worthy, I just looked him up. The Chiefs took some of the youngest players in the draft, and with these 2 picks. Xavier Worthy turned 21 2 days after he was drafted,
Wow.
and Kingsley turned 21 in January. So these are 2 young guys. So like it wouldn't hurt my feelings if Kingsley needed to sit out a season, because you're not really losing much, because some guys don't get drafted till they're 22, and he would be playing when he's 22 at that point. Same way with Worthy. Like if Worthy is, takes a little bit of time to develop, well, it wouldn't hurt my feelings because he just turned 21. So those 2, that blew my mind. I remembered Worthy being young, and then I wanted to look up Kingsley's age, and I was like, we took 2 21-year-olds. They had to be juniors in college, and they had to be true juniors. They're probably redshirt sophomores or true juniors. And we took 2 guys that were, again, you mentioned the Chiefs wanted badly, and they went and got them. They made 2 trades in the same draft. That's even crazy in itself. But even your first round and your second round pick, they were willing to move up, give up anything in the future for getting their guys that they need now. And that's just, and it was an awesome draft for those first 2 picks. So let's get into Jared Wiley, 6'6", 250-pound tight end out of TCU. So this pick was at 131. This was the pick that they got in the deal with the Buffalo Bills when they traded for 28. They swapped 95 for 131. And I wasn't sure at the time, when I was kind of like, watching the draft and getting updates, what the Chiefs were even going to do. There was still a lot of needs. You might have thought they were going to go defense. Tight end is a need, as we mentioned Travis Kelce earlier. We don't know his extent of his career, and we even, thought maybe he would have retired this year after Super Bowl. Like there was rumors about that. So you don't know necessarily like Travis's, timeline. And I mentioned earlier that Veach is way ahead of everyone else when it comes to replacement and getting guys in, moving them around. And this potentially could be, the Travis Kelce, I'm going to put air quotes, replacement, because it's going to be very hard to replace Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is this hybrid wide receiver tight end. And a lot of these tight ends that are coming in they don't play like that. They play like traditional tight ends. And I think Wiley is, he has the upside to be that hybrid, but I think he's much more of a just traditional tight end where he blocks well, underneath routes, maybe seam routes, things that Noah Gray does well. and some of these other kind of just regular tight ends. I think the difference between Wiley versus some of these other regular tight ends that the Chiefs have, like Irv Smith or um, Noah Gray, is that his athletic ability,
Yeah.
his size, being 6'6", being 250 pounds. I think he ran. I think I saw his 40 was 0.01 slower than Keon Coleman, the Buffalo Bills pick at 33.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's fast. He has speed. His athletic ability is very good. And he's big. He's 6'6". So he has a chance. I don't know what the Chiefs are, going to plan on with him. They did bring in Irv Smith Jr. during the offseason. They obviously Noah Gray's been the backup for years now. And then, obviously Travis Kelsey. And they might rotate four tight ends. They have ran four tight ends before when they had Jody Fortson, Blake Bell, Noah Gray, and Travis Kelsey. So I wouldn't be surprised if all four tight ends made the roster. But he's definitely in the discussion to get tight end number 3 as a rookie, just because of his athletic ability. And I think he could be a solid replacement, or at least a solid maybe number 2 tight end going forward, because I don't know what Noah Gray's future is with the Chiefs. He's got to be coming up close to his, deal and, contract expiring. I would assume maybe this coming
I think
off season.
Yeah, I think this is his third year coming
Yeah,
up.
so I'm sure it's coming close, and like I said, Veach is always looking forward, so he's going to get these replacements in. I think the Chiefs made a solid pick. I like I said, I don't know if I would have prioritized tight end now, because I did still think, like, I was very surprised Chiefs didn't go D line. I know they brought back Chris Jones, and they brought back Derek Nottie. They still got, a ton of like rotation pieces, but I was really expecting them to go D line, try to get some rookie, young, fresh legs. And I thought this pick would have been it, but we'll see how this Jared Wiley turns out. From what I've listened to, I haven't watched any highlights of him specifically, but things I've listened to, that he's a solid athletic receiving tight end, but you cannot expect him to be Travis Kelsey. Like, don't like he is very more prototypical than he is Travis Kelsey making up his own routes and running in circles and making plays. Like, we just can't have that expectation on him, because that's just not the player that he is.
Well, I think truthfully, to have the expectation that anybody potentially, ever, or at least, I mean, how rare that anybody would play like Travis Kelsey, right? I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. And we've been lucky enough, the Chiefs have been lucky enough to have two of the greatest tight ends to ever play. And so, again, best place for him to end up. I mean, um, I guess we could just go ahead and just say that for all the picks. I mean, of course, in a way, the best place to end up is the Super Bowl champs. But I do think that we're one of the better coached teams in the league in
Well, and
general.
also
So
learning from the greatest tight end of all time
greatest
is
tight
gonna
end of
is
all
gonna
time.
is gonna exponential your growth and your potential and your skills way faster than anywhere else.
Right, right. And so I mean, I agree, and I concur, with everything that you said. So he'll have Travis Kelsey to learn from, Irv Smith, another veteran tight end, and even Noah Gray. Like we've been talking about, he's in his third year now, and he's got experience at a high level, and he's played pretty solid for us. So he's got a tight end room that is full of potential to learn from. And to your point, as far as you know, this being a surprise pick, I think it is kind of surprising at this stage. Like I could have seen us getting a tight end later, but at this stage, it does seem like a little bit early. But
Yeah, third
to the
round
point,
is like early.
but to the point of what we've kind of been talking about is, I think that they were watching this guy. And I would imagine that the difference between the first two picks and him is that, this may have been a guy that the Chiefs were looking at, but it also was a guy that they were not expecting to be there at that time. And when you see a guy of this talent, athleticism, and size coming up on needing, to start looking at the future for us at the tight end position, And obviously, Mahomes, whenever Travis Kelsey's time is to go, Mahomes is going to need that other tight end outlet. Now, he's probably not going to be like best friends with him like he was Kelsey. Maybe they won't have that exact chemistry, but you know, the tight end position, specifically Travis Kelsey, has been a safety valve for Mahomes, his whole career. And so, when you see a guy with this sort of skill set at this, stage, they were probably like, we can't pass this guy up, right? I have seen a little bit of, footage on him, and I, definitely agree with the reports. I mean, he is a freak athlete for his size. Well, just in general, but he just happens to be huge. And he's got like great hands as far as being on the receiving end of things. He makes like circus catches, one-handed catches. I mean, he can catch the ball. Like he is, I think, a block first tight end, but he is I think I would call him a hybrid. I'm not gonna say he's block first. I really think he's a true hybrid tight end. Um, and just watching his 40, I watched it after we drafted him, and it reminded me of a young Kelsey when Kelsey used to get in the open field. Now, obviously, now Kelsey has slowed down just a little bit, but remember those first few years of Kelsey when he got in the open field, he was galloping. Like he had some wheels on him, for his size, and he could make some plays in the open field. And this guy reminds me of that. Like his 40, I think it was at 4.6, 4.67 or 4.6, something like that. But when he's running it, it looks like he's just like just a horse off the races. I mean, like he's just gone, long strides, and he's just, you don't want to be in this guy's way when he's at full speed, I don't think.
Yeah, it was a 4.62, and Keon Coleman's was 4.61. Just
Yeah.
want to throw that out there. Just
I don't know. I don't know if
make sure if
Keon
Bills
Coleman.
fans.
I don't know if he'll be able to catch up to Josh Allen overthrowing the ball.
Oh man. Well, so speaking of Josh Allen overthrowing the ball to our defensive backs, let's get into the defensive picks that the Chiefs made. This is kind of Brett Veach's bread and butter here, is these late round DB picks. We've had a ton kind of turn out to be, um, so one turned out to be a star, and these others are very good second, third cornerbacks or backup DB or anything like that. And here's just a few. Snead was a fourth rounder. Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams, both seventh rounders. There are number 2 and number 3 corner right now. Tramari Connor, who I mentioned earlier, fourth rounder. So this is something that Brett Veach is known for. He gets guys late, and they turn up being very good role players and developing into stars even. And that's something that I think is kind of hidden too. I can't even remember our DB coach's name right now, but he did interview for I think the defensive coordinator position for the 49ers, and he ended up not taking it. And that's huge because he is very much part of the development of these guys and these DBs, where Veach can take a late pick and they can develop into something great. So the Chiefs at 133 take Jaden Hicks out of Washington State. He's a 6'1", 211 safety. Saw some highlights of him after the Chiefs made the pick. He looks like a hit stick kind of safety. He's going to play up in the box, and he wants to kill you every time you come across the middle, it looks like. I saw a few hit sticks where he lays the hammer on him, lowers that shoulder pad, directly in the chest, knows how to hit. And then Kamal Hayden, coming out of Tennessee, another big corner, 6'1", almost 200 pounds. And that's, that's a very big corner compared to some of the guys on the team like Trent McDuffie, who's I think 5'11" and maybe like a $180. These are bigger guys that are coming into that DB locker room. And Hayden, it's not like he went to some small school or anything. He was playing SEC football. He's playing the top tier talent every week, having to guard some of these receivers that went early, like Brian Thomas or any of the other SEC receivers. So I like the two picks. I do think that the Chiefs needed maybe not two. I wasn't expecting two DB picks, to be honest. I was expecting one because just kind of a role replacement. And guys are kind of getting promoted, like Jalen Watson going to two, Josh Williams going to the third corner. But I like both picks. I think they're going to end up being kind of some role players, and I would like Hayden to maybe be a practice squad guy that eventually works his way in the rotation. I think Hicks has a chance to earn a spot on the roster and be maybe the backup safety. I think it's Nazir Johnson who was on the practice squad last year. He played safety and he got hurt, and he was playing really well in training camp. So I think that there's going to kind of be a battle for that backup safety spot. But I like the picks. I think they were two nice picks that Veach is known to make in good position that you need depth. You need depth at DB. You need a lot of guys that you can rotate in and out. And I think these are two guys that possibly could turn out to be something for the Chiefs in the future.
Yeah, as far as I'm excited about the upside of, Worthy and of Kingsley, and the tight end and all that, but Jaden Hicks is who of this draft. He's like my favorite value pickup. I just I watched highlights on him, and this guy is all over the field. I mean, he is like just if there's a play, he's in on it. He is in on every single play, and that's what I love to see that, especially from a DB safety guy. I think there's some that avoid hitting, and shy away from that. They might lower their shoulder, every now and then on a defensive list receiver, but not necessarily coming downhill. But this guy, from what I've seen anyway, he's downhill. I mean, he's like he is flying all over the field. I know that one of the comparisons for him actually was Harrison Smith from the Vikings, but I liken him when I was watching the video more to like, and they're not the same exact size or anything, but like just the style of like being everywhere all the time of Kyle Hamilton of the Ravens. Like, I don't know. It just felt like he can track the ball well. He can hit like we've talked about. He's in on the downhill running. Coming in and tackling. And that's the kind of guy that I think fits great into Spag's defense, just because he likes to blitz, especially the safeties and corners. He likes to throw in those, those blitzes from the secondary a lot. And this is the perfect, playmaker for that. I don't know. I don't know if I bite my tongue before I say this, but I feel like he could be, and I don't mean it as offensively as this is going to come out, but like a way better. Oh, now I forgot his freaking name. Sorensen, of a way better Dirty Dan. Like just making plays like like.
You just ruined Jaden Hicks' career.
Oh man, I hope I don't.
You just
The best,
gave him the curse of Sorensen.
Just the best parts about Sorensen.
No, Daniel Sorensen was a very good player for the Chiefs. He made some of the biggest plays, in that first Super Bowl run in history, with the fake punt tackle on Justin Reed, which is ironic. But even like the punch out on the kickoff, I mean, Sorensen was awesome. Yeah. I think Hicks has that upside to be, like I said, I think he can make the 53-man roster in his rookie season, and I think he might be the replacement for Justin Reed. There was small talk about maybe cutting Justin Reed with salary over the offseason. I still think Reed is an awesome player, and I think He's a very smart player. He's in the right position. He's not that guy that is getting a lot of interceptions, but he makes tackles. He has big hits. So I think that's a great guy to learn from. And Justin Reed's one of the top safeties in the league. So I think if Hicks can make the roster, I definitely think he's in a great spot. Like we've mentioned, all these guys are going to a great spot. But what's it like to learn from one of the best safeties in the league and a guy that's had a long career and been, you could argue Justin Reed's been a top five safety his entire career, at least when he started getting good playing time and all that. And I think also they need depth with Brian Cook, and that's somebody that's been really kind of forgotten in the Chiefs season. He gets injured during the middle of the season, and it's kind of one of those injuries. It was a torn ACL, I believe, and it's one of those that you're out for 8 months, and you kind of just forgot that some people probably forgot he was even on the team. I mean, and he was playing incredible
Yeah.
before he got injured. And so he's going to be coming back from injury. You're kind of replacing some depth. And I think Chamari Connor is going to kind of move around. So he's not going to be really at safety much. I think he's going to be kind of playing corner more. So it was a great pick. I think Jaden Hicks was a sneaky fourth round. I saw some posts there was a few NFL analysts that had Jaden Hicks going second round. That's how much they liked him, that they projected him going second round, and he fell to the fourth.
I could
So
see that.
yeah, I think that was a great value pick, and I think Veach did some incredible jobs with value, not necessarily getting every single star, but the places he got these players, like you said with Wiley, getting a value pick there at 131 when I'm sure on some boards he might have been a third rounder or maybe like a very early third rounder, and you get him at 131. Like he just did very good with value. And
Mm.
so I left the two, kind of non-sexy picks for last, just with, nobody really wants to talk about Lyman. We talked about Kingsley, and, that's a little different. He's going to hopefully be a star and playing left tackle. But I think these picks are still important. And I think there's more that meets the eye with these picks. And I think, because a lot of people were like, I remember when it came up, center from where? Why are we picking center at 159? Like, what are we doing? Um, we pick Hunter Norzad, I think is how you pronounce it. And then they take CJ Hansen later in the draft in the seventh round. These are the two other offensive picks that the Chiefs make. But I think there's more that really is there versus just, oh, we just picked two random offensive linemen. Both, I think I've seen reports that they are solid. They're both over 300 pounds. They're both big, 6'3", 6'5". They have size. But you have to think about how many draft picks the Chiefs have hit on over the last few years where you do a solid signing with Joe Thuney. He's playing left tackle. He's getting older. He's on a bigger contract. If you want to continue to build this team, you have to be able to work pieces around. Creed Humphrey, who is one of the best centers in the league, he's due to get paid next offseason. And there's possibly extension, like he's eligible for extension this season. And then same thing with Trey Smith. He's also due for a big payday. He's played incredible. Now he's not maybe as highly as regarded as Creed is, but he needs a payday. So I think these picks are really more, they're good value for the depth that the Chiefs are going to need in the future. Instead of having to go re-sign a guy or spend money necessarily you don't want to spend on a center because you don't want to pay him the top dollar. Because Creed's, I mean, if not the best center, one of the best centers in the league. He has a snapping problem sometimes, but blocking wise, he's one of the best centers in the league. He deserves, big time money. And I don't see the Chiefs overpaying a guy at a position where you can go draft and possibly hit again. So I see the Veach's vision when it comes to this stuff because he's really just preparing for the future. For a lot of these guys are going to leave. And I thought one other position that they were going to do that was linebacker. But maybe this is a sign that the Chiefs are going to end up paying Nick Bolton because I believe Nick Bolton is due for an extension and is eligible during this season as well. So I like the picks. I won't say I love them. taking 3 offensive linemen in one draft is a little crazy. Um, but it could turn into something where they're valued down the line. They're definitely not going to be anything of value now, but Veach has the vision, and I trust Veach in what he does.
I think that Brett Veach and Andy Reid and all the guys in charge of player personnel and all that, they said hashtag never again. And what I mean by that is never again are we going to have Patrick Mahomes running for his life, running in the backfield, running for 500 yards when we have the best quarterback in the league. We had arguably the best receiver in the league and the best tight end in the league, and we lost because of the offensive line in that Super Bowl. Mahomes should have one more Super Bowl and the Chiefs organization could have one more Super Bowl, one more ring, one more Lombardi. And because of and we had some drop passes, but I mean, even the passes that were being made, obviously, famously, Mahomes was making, he was literally side horizontal parallel to the earth, making throws, which he shouldn't have to do. And I think that, I really think they're like, never again. We're never going to have Mahomes running for his life. He is always going to have, he may not maybe have the best offensive line always, because that's going to be hard probably, but he's always going to have like one of the best offensive lines for the rest of his career. I think that there's either, if it's not written, it's unwritten rule that's probably what's going to happen. Just, I mean, and there's no reason not to. First of all, we know, on any team, even that's not Mahomes led, that the offensive line, yeah, they, like you said, they're not sexy picks. They don't get the flowers, but everything goes through the offensive line. There is no offense without the offensive line. And I think when you have Mahomes, it's like to maximize, obviously his potential, he's going to make plays no matter what, but to allow him to just do what he does best, give him time, right? And I think that we are, going the route of probably following some cues, probably from the New England dynasty, where those guys always had a really solid offensive line. And it was never like even the biggest names, even in offensive line. You know what I mean? It's not like they had, like you said, Joe Thomas or Joe Staley or any of those guys. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking on more offensive linemen, but like, you know what I mean? Like they didn't have like, and they weren't trading and making these crazy moves to get the best offensive lineman. They just had next man up. He's ready to go, and we're going to plug and play this guy. He knows the system. We've got depth, and I think that's exactly what we're doing. And we've seen that even on not just the offensive line, but like in general on the team, is taking that, no one guy is bigger than the team approach, except for maybe Mahomes, rightfully so. Sorry, everybody else, but you know what I mean? But like, there's no name that's necessarily worth paying that we can't get two or three more guys to try and do that job. And we've seen that, we've seen us do that. And we had to let guys like Willie Gay and, L'Jarius Sneed walk and guys like that, and Tyrann Mathieu. It's like, we respect what you've done for the team, but we can't pay you, so you got to go. And, plug and play the next guy that's going to do the job. And, I think that's what we're doing with the offensive line, just making sure that we've got depth. Now, whenever it's time for Joe Thuney to, get a new contract or retire, I think definitely like let him walk, even though he's played fantastic for us. But I would like to see us pay Creed and Trey Smith, hopefully what they want to stay. And I think they have a good relationship with Mahomes and the team and stuff. So hopefully they would take, like a respectable, extension whenever that time comes, and the Chiefs pay them what they're worth also in a respectable way. And then we can keep those guys, but things don't always work out like that. And I understand guys going out and trying to get what they're worth. So again, just making sure we always have someone that can step up to the plate on the offensive line and not let Mahomes get hit or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it's great too, just having younger backups as well. Like those guys being younger really helps. Helps the case with especially guys wanting to get paid. I do think that the Chiefs will probably they'll pick one of the two between Creed and Trey. My guess is if they were going to choose the cheaper one, it'd be Trey, and I wouldn't mind. I just think Creed deserves, and it would have to be a hefty discount, I think, for them to keep him. He's going to get the top center money. So either way, I think the Chiefs had a good draft, and they got definitely better at every position that they drafted in. So with all that being said, Nick, what would you grade the Chiefs, 2024 NFL draft? And is it A through F, or you want to give it a 1 through 10? What would you what do you want to give it?
I'll go old school, letter grade report card. And I'm going to give him an A minus. I'm going to throw in, the minus just because I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say if it was an A plus draft, just because obviously being Super Bowl champions, we don't have necessarily our pick of the absolute cream of the crop. And I just give it a minus just for, benefit of the doubt. Some guys on the team that we picked up, or, some of the draft picks we picked up, they are a little, I would say, rough around the edges. But I think we got great talent, which is where the A comes in. I mean, we got guys that can make impacts. I think there's a little bit of, tweaking here and there, more so than, just the jump from college to pro. That's probably needs to be done. But all in all, like you said, I think we improved at every position we drafted at. I think that the rich got richer, to say that. I don't think we had any dumb picks as of right now. It's hard to tell, but it doesn't look like it was that was just a waste of a pick, drafting, a quarterback in the first round after you just signed a 4-year deal with Kirk Cousins.
Shout out the Atlanta Falcons.
Which actually, okay, by the way, I just made that joke. I actually don't totally disagree with that. I think everybody's being a little too harsh.
He's 24 years old. He's gonna wear number 7. He's gonna be the next Mike Vick. Watch, I'm calling it. His jersey hasn't come out. He's left-handed. It's gonna be Michael Vick.
Why not? That's a good omen.
So, I give the Chiefs. I think I'm very close to. I'm leaning towards A versus A minus, but I think I'm gonna go with A minus just because I think they did incredible in the top rounds. I think the middle rounds were decent. I do question a little bit, even though I said the O lineman picks were good and they're for depth. I do question a little bit taking 3 O linemen in one draft. That seems. But you made good points that it's to protect Mahomes, and we're not going to let that happen again. But I think there was other positions like I mentioned, defensive line. I think linebacker is depth wise. I don't know if the linebacker position has a lot of depth. With Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquill, and then Leo Chenal. But kind of after that, it's up in the air on who's behind them. So I think there was definitely other positions that could have been taken. I think as much as we like the Jared Wiley pick, maybe we felt that could have been someone else as well. I still like the pick, but overall, I think I'm going to give them an A minus as well, just because they got good position, they got good value. But there's areas where they could have been better, and
yeah,
and I trust Veach in those other positions that we may not agree with, and we also talked about Xavier Worthy. We had some other ideas at receiver, but yeah, I'm going to give him an A minus.
I thought we might pick up a late round running back. We need to
I did
draft.
too. I was thinking like another seventh. Like we had mentioned maybe like Frank Gore Jr.
Yeah, I like the
Something
guy
like
out of
that.
Mizzou, Cody Schrader, ended up going to the 49ers. So, but yeah, I think we're on the same page. You kind of anticipated a late round running back just for a little bit of depth and things, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I think they didn't bring back at least currently the Chiefs haven't brought back Jet. They didn't bring back McKinnon at all. So they're still rocking with Pacheco. They did bring back Clyde, and then Perrin is sitting on the bench. But I agree. I think there was some other positions, especially that they could have gotten. And running back was one of them. I think Pacheco's kind of on that list of, are you going to get paid or are we going to kind of have to let you go? So it would have been nice to kind of figure out a future running back as well in Veach's vision for the future.
The real shame is we didn't pick up no fullback. We need to run a fullback ISO. Just give the ball to Mike Allstott, fullback dive. I don't even know if there's a fullback in the draft.
I was going to say, there's only 24 active fullbacks in the league. So
bring back the fullback.
Bring back Mike Allstott, and I will be happy. I will take him at fullback.
Mike Allstott now.
Yeah, no joke. All right. Well, I think that wraps up the first episode of season 2 for the Neutral Zone podcast. We are back. Expect, I would say we're going to kind of wait for some news. I think with the Chiefs, we'll probably drop another episode talking about the possible movement of the Chiefs stadium, Arrowhead, maybe coming across to the Kansas side, and we'll sprinkle in some other stuff. But as more Chiefs information comes out, we'll be dropping episodes. We'll probably be doing them at least maybe we're going to try once a week, but if there's not enough information, we might be doing them every 2 weeks until we get kind of back into the swing of things for the regular season and preseason. Training camp, I'm sure we'll maybe be doing those once a week. But yeah, we're back, baby, and we're excited. We're ready to start diving in, talking about Chiefs football, and getting this show going. We're excited to be back.
On the hunt for the three-peat. Number 3.
Don't forget to find us on all social media at Neutral Zone Pods, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, and Twitter. Follow us on there. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we love you guys. See y'all later. Peace. How about those?